Welcome to Talking New York Real Estate with Vince Rocco. Our show is all about the exciting world of real estate and in particular, how it relates to the luxury New York marketplace. But if you are not planning a real estate transaction in New York, we still have plenty of information you can use no matter where you are. Now, here's our show. Good morning, everyone. As of March 2025, the real estate market in Florida, Connecticut, and Westchester County are exhibiting distinct trends compared to New York City. In Florida, the market is showing signs of moderation with increased inventory levels, longer time on the market, and fewer homes selling above their list price, indicating a shift toward a more balanced environment. In Connecticut, they're experiencing a resurgence in buyer interest with new platforms like Final Offer, enhancing transparency by providing real-time data on competitive bids for residential properties. And in Westchester County, it continues to attract buyers seeking suburban living with proximity to New York City, maintaining steady demand. In contrast, New York City's real estate market presents a mixed picture. Manhattan has seen a decline in median asking prices, while the outer boroughs such as Brooklyn and Queens are experiencing price increases due to heightened demand and reduced inventories. Those variations underscore the diverse dynamics influencing regional real estate markets. And at the table with me today are Mark Schaefer from Brown Harris Stevens, John Engel from Douglas Elliman, and Michael Holt from Compass. And they join me now to discuss. But first, let me welcome my listeners and viewers from across the United States and all around the globe. I am Vince Rocco, and this is Talking New York Real Estate. So let's go behind the headlines and talk about real estate, get inside real estate, the state of our industry.
Hi, it's Stephen Bailey from Roadway Moving and Storage. Listening to Vince Rocco, you know the right partner makes all the difference. At Roadway, we deliver an experience your clients will love. For specialized services and white glove care, choose Roadway. Want to learn more? Email me at steven@roadwaymoving.com or visit roadwaymoving.com.
Okay, everybody, we are back, and we're going to be talking about today something a little different: Florida, Connecticut, and Westchester County here in New York, the suburbs of New York City. Now, look, there was a time when people would buy in the suburbs of New York City for vacation homes, for weekend homes, long weeks away in warmer weather, the Hamptons on Long Island, Florida, of course, definitely, Connecticut, even in New Jersey. That still happens, but today, more than ever, and it's either good news or bad news, people are looking to relocate into other areas outside of New York City for work reasons, for a whole bunch of reasons, and spend maybe less money. So we're going to talk about the differences in what's going on today here in New York City, in our markets, and also in the other three markets. So we start, though, with inventory levels. So, here in New York City, they are very low. We need to get those inventory levels up. There's a whole host of reasons why they are low. We've talked about it for weeks. We probably will touch on it again later. But the inventory here is pretty low. And what I want to find out from you guys, let's start in Connecticut, John. How are inventory levels in your marketplace in Connecticut, the whole of Connecticut, compared to New York City right now? Or is it too much inventory, not enough inventory? What's happening? Record
low inventory, and it's throughout Fairfield County. Of the 15 or so markets we track, it's consistent in both the large markets, Stamford, Norwalk, Fairfield, middle markets such as New Canaan, Darien, towns of 20,000, and even small markets like Rowayton, which is a small neighborhood, waterfront or Southport waterfront neighborhood. You're seeing record low across the county. And while people might come out of New York or in from London or in from California and look at the four towns, if they can't get into those four towns because of those low inventory rates, they're now looking at some of the surrounding communities. So the benefit is accruing to all the communities across the board at every price level.
We're going to talk in a bit about the price at which these homes are flying off the market or not in a minute. But Michael, let's talk a little bit about Florida, the secondary market that you also work in. You're a successful agent here in New York City, but the Florida market has always been very attractive to people here in the Northeast for vacation, for summer home, for weekends away. And recently, I guess, from the COVID pandemic and on, permanent housing. What's happening in your market down in Florida with inventory levels, and how do they compare to what we are seeing here in New York City?
Sure. Well, first I have to say, thanks again, Vince, having me on the show. It's always a pleasure and a ton of fun. So, but yes, the other market that I'm in, specifically in Florida, Sarasota, we have a pretty big active presence in. My mother and sister are representing the team over there, but we meet weekly to talk about inventory, listings, things, and deals that we're doing. And it's quite interesting because, you nailed it on the head. Like around COVID, I mean, when that was over, this crazy, just crazy spike in demand with people moving down there, buying for all sorts of reasons, and big corporations move down there. I mean, we all know it's no secret how hot the Florida market has been. But now you're starting to see a very different narrative down there. The amount of inventory in Sarasota alone has gone up about 15% from what it's usually at. I have some fun stats to read off to you later for sure. But, the interesting thing is the temperature there is definitely shifting. It's a buyer's market now, which is absolutely crazy. But, you have to ask yourself, because a lot of people think like, oh, wow, buyer's market, what does that mean? That means I'm going to go get an amazing deal and all these great things are going to happen. I always like to say this, you take your temperature as far as how your market's doing from supply and demand, right? And when supply starts to outpace demand, that's when you're starting to have this little bit of shift. But that said, once there becomes enough supply, generally things take longer to sell. So then your next indicator would be days on market. Days on market starts to increase. But after days on market starts to increase, then you start to see something else. You start to see things are selling longer to sell. So now you're seeing price reductions. What happens with price reductions? Things are selling at a lower price. So that's when you start to see that shift. But what's very interesting, though, I think when buyers get truly, truly excited, those environments are good and they're good signs for buyers, but also when the discount changes. Because what you'll notice is even we've had our soft markets here in New York too, but when the discount like in Sarasota right now, on the average is 5% from asking price. That's still relatively the same, even though it's cool to a buyer's. But the thing is that it's from last ask. Last ask is now lower than it was in a year ago. So there's a number of factors to why things have changed there. But yeah.
Yeah, the whole of Florida is, in what I'm reading, South Florida, your neck of the woods further north, it's changing a bit, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But Mark, let's talk about Westchester. Near and dear to me, born and raised in Westchester, went to school in Westchester, a New York City resident for 100 years, but I know Westchester well. My family still lives there, and from my observation, anytime something goes on the market, it flies off the marketplace.
Yeah,
is my observation correct? And if so, why? What's going on up in Westchester? Beloved area, by the way. I love it.
So I live in Pelham. I mostly do southern Westchester.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Westchester's quite large, actually. Very big county.
I went to school in New Rochelle. I know it well.
And just like New York City, there are many different markets happening. But on the whole, you're really close, great schools, commutes, i.e. Scarsdale, Bronxville, Pelham, Mamaroneck, Rye. All of them have extremely limited inventory. In my town right now, there's usually, every week is different. A few houses come on every week, maybe 2 or 3. But through most of Q1, there were only 4 houses on at any given week. This week it's 11, but it's the spring, officially today's Q2, right? First day of April.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God, Q2 is right.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right?
So in Bronxville, there's 7 houses right now. Yeah, exactly.
Well, but let me ask you something. So when you say that there are something like 4 houses on the market in any given week, how long, we'll talk about absorption rate in a minute, but how long are they lasting on the market, those 4? Telling me or anybody else
The average
listening.
is 12 days.
Oh, okay.
But they're really going into contracts. I mean, they're usually getting their accepted offer as fast as 4 days.
Wow.
And our data is lagging because just of the way it takes time to close here. The data is lagging, and so I'm encouraging buyers to usually go around 7 to 10% over asking. 2 weeks ago, I submitted 7 offers for about $11 million total. All 7 were bidding wars. 2 buyers were cash. Both cash buyers got outbid by other cash buyers, and
See, this is why
and 2
he's
people
here,
won.
Superstar, right? Okay. Wow. Keep going.
2 people won, and a third person got a contract a week later when somebody backed out for a foundation issue.
Oh, it's a foundation issue. Michael, I see you like, wow.
Oh, it's the complete opposite of Florida's right now.
It's just, the taxes are very expensive in Westchester.
They're very expensive.
So it does
Correct.
pull back purchase prices.
Yeah.
But what you can get for $1.3 million versus, Manhattan is completely different.
What kind of taxes on that 1.3? Because in Darien, that's going to be a $13,000 tax bill. What are your taxes?
So For the most part, across Westchester, in those towns that I described, the tax rate is typically 3% of purchase price, and almost all the towns reassess for purchase price.
So $35,000, triple that of Darien, Connecticut. You hear that, everybody? Darien, $12,000.
We have our own bidding war going on right here, Connecticut versus Westchester. But you know what? Here's my 2 cents on the taxes, and I'm very well aware and very well versed with Westchester taxes my entire life. Oh my God, you buy something in Westchester, the taxes are crazy. Let me tell you this, okay? Have you looked at the taxes in New York City lately? Okay, they ain't so great. You buy a 2-bedroom. I was selling a 2-bedroom condo in a whole new development building. We completed that about 3 years ago. 3 years ago, a 2-bedroom condo, 1,250 square feet. The annual taxes unabated $36,000 a year for 2 bedrooms. I mean, come on. So when we say, prices are high or low, or taxes are high or low, you got to look at the comparison. I'd much prefer to buy something in Westchester for 1.3 than that apartment was 1.5, 1,250 square feet and 36,000. I can't even imagine 3 years later how much those taxes are. It's wild. It's crazy. Michael, how are home prices dealing in Florida right now? Are they going up? They rising? They're falling? Or are they stabilizing? In whatever this market is that you're seeing, because we see not much movement here in New York.
Right. Well, in Sarasota, they're starting to come down. I think that's because you're having just the inventory increasing at a level to where there's more things on the market taking longer to sell, and you're seeing prices come down. Now, I would say, especially the condo market, I mean, single family is still being affected, still coming down, but especially condominiums. Sarasota, as you know, we recently had to endure the pain of the hurricane season last year. That really affected things. Indeed. There are new building codes. There's obviously with the insurance, that's a whole other thing. There's been a lot of things affecting the condominium market. And as you pointed out, your taxes, sure, but your monthlies, your carrying costs, they do affect pricing.
100%. 100%. John, so prices in Connecticut, Fairfield County, raising, falling, staying flat, indicative of what the market is currently. How is it comparing to what's happening here? As I said to Michael before, we're kind of like unchanged price-wise.
So they're rising, and they're rising across the board. I mean, I had a couple of properties last summer, bidding wars at the $2.5 million level. I think those properties right now in the spring market, after you've seen those close, are going to be at 2.9. 2.9 is the median price of a sale in the first 2 months in Darien and
awesome.
in New Canaan.
That's awesome.
Greenwich is at the probably 3.3, 3.4 level now for median price.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What about
but
Westport?
You're now starting to see the people who are getting priced out of the New Canaan or Darien market look at Wilton. They're looking at North Stamford. Darien right now, 22 houses on the market. We're talking about towns of 7,000 households. 22 houses on the market. New Canaan, 32. Wilton, 24 houses on the market. There's so little inventory, and now we're beginning to see the lagging effect of that little bit of inventory in the 2024 market with price appreciation in the 2025 market.
Before I get to Mark, just because I'm curious, what is the town that's most highly desirable in your territory? I mean, I love Westport, I love Wilton, I love Darien, I love Greenwich. I mean, I would probably not know what town to pick.
I'll give you two answers. Depends on where you work. If you're a Wall Streeter and you have to be in downtown New York, you're going to be on the main line. You're going to be looking at Darien. You're going to be looking at Greenwich because you're going to be commutation sensitive. But if you're looking for schools, New Canaan, Westport are probably 1 and 2 lately. And when those school listings, rankings get published, everybody goes bananas and begins their search in those two towns.
Very well said and very, very correct. Mark, so prices in Westchester as a whole, again, like John, multiple different towns as you laid out before, some higher than others, whatever, some better than others, based on how you look at things. Overall, though, what's pricing doing? I mean, you alluded to it before. But
so a lot of those
overall,
2.2 to 2.5 houses, when they're actually closing, are 15 to 16% over ask. Mm-hmm. But and most of those are going for cash.
I thought you said you told your people to bid 7% over ask. Now we're at 15%. Are you losing out?
And that would be like in the 1 to 1.6 range. That's actually where they're trading, where those people are financing.
Yeah.
But the cash buyers that are, sorry, my phone's ringing. The real estate brokers. I didn't answer it. That's the good news. The 1 to 1.6 range, that's where people are financing and waiving their financing contingency, waiving their inspection contingencies.
Wow.
Those poor first-time home buyers, they just can't compete with the downsizing.
Well, hold on a minute.
The downsizers, who are buying in cash.
Well, hold on a minute, because that's a very good point. First-time home buyers, $1.6 million, right? Is that what we're kind of guessing? Whatever. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a lot. So waiving contingencies and waiving inspections, I mean, is it that desperate that they want to get in? But look,
yes, it is.
Yes.
Because of severe
Those poor 40-year-old millennials, they just can't get a break.
Geriatric millennial is the phrase.
Okay. So let's talk about days on market. How many days on market, generally speaking, or what's the absorption rate in your territory, generally speaking?
It's still really fast. Everything is they're doing a broker open on Thursday. They'll start showings on Saturdays.
I need to move to Connecticut or Westchester, I can tell, right? Okay.
We have
if
a
you're
place
working
for
with
you
buyers,
guys.
it's really competitive, right? It's hard to get deals for your buyers. And if you're working with a seller, some of the brokers aren't really so good at managing multiple offers.
Oh, I know that. Trust me. I teach it, and I want to bash them over the head all the time when I hear comments back. Well, I can't do everything. Yeah, you can. That's what you're here for. Absorption rate. I think, did you say before 12 days on market average?
No, not 12 days. That was
okay.
definitely not.
So one of you guys
But
said.
you know
That's
what's
what
interesting?
That was you.
I wrote down some stats just because what's so interesting is that single family and condominium comparison. I mean, they both are cooling off, but it's amazing the difference in the condominiums. So my memory is not as good as yours, John, but I have to write it down.
He's got the stats going on.
Oh,
today.
he does. Very sharp from both of you, actually. So here's the thing. With single family, it's about, the absorption rate's about 6 3/4. Okay. But still months of inventory is up 14%. So it's a lot. That's a huge increase. The discount, as I mentioned, is about 5%. Days on market is up 28% at 42 days. That's single family. Now, if you go to condominiums, it's the days on market is 71 days. So single family 42.
I would think it would be the reverse.
Condominium, because remember condominium is going softer because of
Correct.
all those changes that they've had.
And a lot more
monthlies
of
and
them.
carrying costs. Yeah, and then also remember this, especially in Florida, it's like majority of people buying condominiums are usually it's not their primary. First-time home buyers, because that's the huge difference in Florida too, is that the median price over there is about $500,000. It's like depending where you are now. I can tell you things in the
But
luxury
that's still,
market there. But
way
for
lower than
first-time home buyers, they're not having to shell out, $1.1 million.
Right.
And also, again, it's mostly single-family demand versus condominium. So
How much of that is because it's the low season in Florida? Right now, this is the high season for Westchester and Connecticut, where
Yes.
50% of all deals are getting done right now.
Yeah.
So it occurs to me that our months of inventory is down from 2.8 to maybe 2.2 at this point.
So I love that you said that because when I compare data, I like to do apples to apples as well. But no, you look at the seasonal data from where it was last year and previous seasons, and it's still very much cooling and weakening. A lot of the luxury brokers that I communicate with there, they see things really continue to retract. So it's a quite an interesting time in Florida. I always say in any market you should be pricing ahead of it. Whether if it's a buyer's or seller's market, you always need to be aware. And so that is something for sure is that temperature is shifting towards buyer's market there.
All right. With that said, we have to take a quick break. No one's going anywhere. We're coming right back as Talking New York Real Estate is just getting underway on this very busy Tuesday morning. Don't go anywhere.
The Everset provides full-service staging and furniture rental solutions in the New York area. For more information, please visit us at staging.theeverset.com or email us at staging@theeverset.com to request a free proposal.
Okay, we are back. And by the way, breaking news since we left a commercial, and I want to read it to you because I haven't really absorbed it yet, and I'm really a little annoyed about it. So Councilmember Eric Botcher is introducing to New York City, as of today, pedestrian pricing tolls. The nation's first walking toll charge will go into effect from anywhere south of 60th Street in Manhattan. Does this sound familiar? Okay. I don't know what the hell's going on south of 60th Street, but it better stop. Okay, quickly. The charge could be up to $3.99 for each half a mile walk below 60th Street. Non-residents who walk slowly will incur an additional 25% surcharge. I mean, you know what? I'm not even going to continue reading this because I'm aggravated. It's insane. It's ridiculous. What is it all about? Okay? Knock it off. Let's get back to our conversation. That was the breaking news for this morning.
Is that an April Fool's joke? It is.
No,
it is
it's
April
not.
1st.
It's real. I wish it was.
If you're walking slow, you need to stay on the right side, and if you're passing, you got to be in the left. Just how you do.
I mean,
We
who's going
should
to monitor how
tax
fast you're
slow
walking?
walkers in the city, though. I mean, that's not okay.
I don't like slow walkers in the city either, but who's going to manage that? Who's going to monitor that? You're walking slow. I'm going to charge you 25 cents more.
That's it.
I think it's an April Fool's joke.
Yeah.
There's no way.
It's real. It's real.
Instead of road rage, it's walking rage. I just got to be careful. If I see Vince,
I can't.
Put a pep in my step.
You know, there's a lot lately. I can't. I can't even. Anyway.
That's why people move to Connecticut.
Yeah. No walking tolls and no tolls lower than.
And
You ever get in
cheaper taxes.
I'm sorry for the rant, but you get in a taxi cab after like 3 or 4 o'clock, going from anywhere south of 60th Street to where I live on the Upper West Side. I mean, it's like $9 or more just
to get in.
Well, that, yeah, but then there's $9 just at, the congestion pricing increase.
Yeah.
And then, $7 to get in, and then that goes up. So $40 later, you're home. I'm like, really? Got it.
Today's episode sponsored by Connecticut Governor Ned Lamont.
I told you, maybe I need to think about Connecticut or Westchester, okay? Let's talk about bidding wars, because in some cases they are happening. And I know in Westchester and also Connecticut, as you're saying, it seems like the wild, wild west because of the low inventory. My family lives in northern Westchester, and it seems like, and I look at the marketplace, I'm not really, very savvy with it, but I look at it enough, and as an agent, kind of know what's happening. It's moving pretty quickly. And I didn't know until you said it a little while ago that people are offering over asking prices, and then even more so. Why? What's the urgency that people are feeling to move into your neck of the woods?
Well, keep in mind that the prices are already 4.6 above what they were in Q4 of last year. So people are really paying much more if they're paying 10% over a already inflated 5% purchase price. So it is a moving target, and that's why we watch the data. But it is a moving target because those houses that are in contract for 15 or 16% over ask haven't closed yet from when everything lists now. So it's really kind of what other brokers on the ground are seeing with their bids and trying to communicate that within their offices. But if you're not in that picture, then you don't know what's going on.
Any risk of a crash? I say no.
What kind of crash are you talking about?
There's no way that this is going to crash. This is going to continue for at least the next year.
The problem is
Talk about positive attitude.
There's no lots left in my town, really.
That's what the data
even
suggests.
build.
We're not building houses fast enough. Land prices just went up.
Yeah.
Construction costs just went up.
Well,
P&Z, just as restrictive as ever. You cannot replace the product for what. So you may complain that you're having to pay a 10, 15% premium against other bidders who are looking at last year's prices in order to set that price, but you can't replace the product. Building costs have gone up. Some builders complain double. I don't know if that's entirely true, but they've gone up significantly.
And labor costs.
They have gone up significantly. Labor costs have gone up. The cost of goods, everything. I mean, supply chain, there are still supply chain issues, spottingly here and there. But let's talk about the first-time buyer. You alluded to it before. 1.6 million for a first-time buyer here in the city. It's definitely under $1 million. Well, maybe up to $1.3 million or $4 million. Significant portion of our business, but we have been living, with the elephant in the room for the past 2 years, and that is interest rates being higher than they've been a while back. Okay, and there's a whole bunch of explanations for that. But when first-time buyers are looking at interest rates. And then here in New York City, they're looking at monthlies in addition to a higher interest rate. How are they dealing, Michael, in your territory, or even here in your New York territory, with that increase in interest rates? What can they do about it? We try and tell them that it's pretty much the norm now. 6 to 6.5 to 7% is pretty much the norm. It's what it's always been. And I repeat this every week on this program, but no one still wants to pay attention to that. Well, it used to be 3%. Yeah, okay, whatever. I used to be 20. Where did that get me?
The thing is, there's always a correlation, I believe, with interest rates and demand. However, I think we're entering to a time where I think more and more people, at least that we're working with, are starting to accept where they are.
Yes.
I saw a thing the other day. It was actually a client had it in the low 6s even. So I think it's fair. I think it matters depending on the market. Like, for example, I was looking at some stats for New York. And I was looking yesterday, actually, and comparing the spring market over the past seasons. We're on pace to have one of the busiest markets we've had since 2021 and 2022.
I'm hearing that. Yeah.
There was a spike in transactions, obviously, after then, because COVID was finished and you saw that just huge amount of demand and people buying. And so right now, the stats and the current market that we're in today is that we're on pace to have one of the better springs that we've had in years. And the thing is there are some macro issues like interest rates, but there's also the micro issues and what's going on in the local markets. And perfect example, I mean, look how bullish you guys are. Oh my gosh, in those markets. I'm so curious also to talk about off-market listings and if that's a thing in your market, because it's just, wow, what a seller's market you have. But interest rates are the same in that market as well as they are in Florida. But Sarasota has some local issues and different things down there that have caused the market to weaken. But don't get me wrong, they've had a lovely little bull run down there. It's been a seller's market for a long time.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. I've said on this program several times when the interest rate comes out, my nephew and his new wife just bought a house in Brookfield, in your territory up there, with an adjustable rate, I think, for 15 years at 5.5 or 5.6%. So you know what? And they called me and said, "Is that a good deal?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's a great deal. Jump on it."
Yeah.
15 years from now, who knows? What the market's going to be. You can always refinance. That's the point of it. So what does it look like, for your buyers out there, whether they're first time or not, looking at an interest rate of 6 to 7?
Interest rate's not a factor. It's like 10th in the list of factors that are important.
That is interesting.
I've got buyers who are looking at a house in Stanford lately, and they're like, well, the owner just paid $800,000 for it a couple of years ago. We think $1.2 million is too much. And I said, really? After 3 years of record prices in the stock market, all that liquidity out there, 6% interest rates. I said, there's so many factors other than what they paid for it 5 years ago, irrelevant. It's how much competition. And when you've got 10 people bidding on every $1.2 million house in Connecticut, that's what you've got to focus on. So
$1.2 million seems cheap to me. I mean, based on what we see down here, so I can get that. I mean, I understand how you.
But they look at what was paid last year, and they say, I only need to bid, a little bit more. And we say, no. The market is moving. It is a moving target. And it has everything to do with record prices in the stock market for the last 3 years, a tremendous amount of liquidity, huge inflation rates on everything in society. We already talked about inflation of labor costs, inflation of construction costs. So many other factors are taking precedence over interest rates, especially when you have so many cash bids coming in. Now, cash bids are a way to compete. A lot of these people are refinancing after the closing, but they have to compete. They come with cash.
Mark, you mentioned a lot of cash offers in your territory lately, 11 deals or whatever you've got going on there. What other than the cash deals, what are they thinking about interest rates, or are they? I mean, it's interesting to hear that in Connecticut, it's really not a priority. It might fall down on that list of whatever. We are here in New York, or at least in Manhattan, I can say, maybe it's not number one anymore, but it's kind of the top 5, maybe top 3, right?
Well, you had asked about first-time home buyers and being non-contingent financing, and that is a conversation that I do have with most of my buyers that I'm working with that are financing. I think it's an important piece of the conversation, but they do need to have extra funds behind them if they're paying over the asking price, which is also the second piece of that conversation, because if it doesn't appraise, what happens?
Yeah.
How much more money will
Yeah.
you have to put down?
Exactly.
So it really needs to be a buyer who's putting down at least 25%, who's willing to waive their contingency on financing. There's so many other factors as well. Do they have family money if they need to make up that difference? But if you don't have that money, you're not going to walk away from your escrow down payment.
My top two lenders have said they have not had a house fail to appraise in over 6 months. Neither one of my top two lenders has had a house fail to appraise in over 6 months.
And we've all lived through
I
the
just
days.
had one.
Yeah, well, we've all lived through the days where
Well, that's
been a
Westchester for you.
bidding war. Here we go again. But we all remember the days where appraisals were a disaster. I was selling a whole building at one point, and every unit that was getting ready to close did not appraise. It was a tragedy.
Wow.
Every unit, it was
Oh, my
unbelievable. I mean, we've
gosh.
come and gone, 100 times since those days. But what about all cash? Michael, in Florida, is that kind of like more happening than not, or?
Well, I mean, obviously the bidding wars for us have died down, right? So you don't have to be as competitive in your offer, but again, it depends on the product. It also depends on the price range. Perfect example,
definitely.
like in New York, also when you're getting, especially above 3-5 million, forget it. It's cash. Well, in Florida too, but the thresholds are usually smaller, especially around $3 million market down there. So it really depends. Also, there's some neighborhoods that are premium in Sarasota that people want to be in. And as you pointed out, like there's no more land to build houses. And if there is a piece of land that things going at a premium and cost of construction, the temperament and time of doing it and risk and all of that. So it's not very common that there's in certain neighborhoods that there's product available. And if there is, I mean, that's when you can run into situations where you might have something real just really competitive with buyers, and sometimes they'll waive the financing contingency, but it's at a certain price point. Generally, those offers are cash.
Let's talk about sellers, though. So, in certain markets, and certainly where we are these days, are sellers giving or making concessions to buyers more than ever before, or are they not? Incenting them to purchase their home, their condo, their apartment, and not necessarily, just a reduction in price, but other incentives. And if so, what are they?
So in Florida, so as you pointed out, I mean, how many bids are you guys doing to where there's a contingent financing deal? If you're in a bidding war and you're a contingent financing deal, the cash is going to beat you. The guy that waives the financing contingency, it would have to be. It's just a lot harder for them to obviously win bidding wars. So. That's how we were in Florida. But now since the market's cooling off, it's like, okay, well, we can keep that financing contingency in there. So you're seeing little things like that. Right now, the main thing that's changing in Florida, specifically Sarasota, things are taking longer to sell, and you're starting to see price drops and things trade at a little bit lower of a price. So that you're going to inherently get some concessions, but usually, I think right now where we are, that's the big one. So,
And what about you?
So what we've been
Concessions going
speaking
on
about most about
in Westchester, or no?
what we've been speaking about mostly is single families. So dumpy, sad co-ops that haven't been renovated are staying on the market for 300
Dumpy,
days.
sad co.
that's funny. That's how it is.
Listen,
in
it's
New York,
like the
too.
same as the city. A co-op from 1980 that hasn't been
no,
renovated, and the
I'm
seller
not
won't
gonna-
even paint it.
I think it's
going to stay on the market for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Like if you're
Oh,
a
yeah.
seller,
Uh-huh.
do some things to maybe your largest asset to sell it. Help us help you.
Indeed. What about in masterful world of Connecticut?
So
what are
the-
sellers doing to incent those buyers, or are they, or do they need to?
So there's two major forms of contingency, and what bankers have figured out is that they can pre-approve, so we can eliminate the contingency of bank financing
Right.
for the most part, and
Well, that
say
was a
I'm
biggie
already
for years.
pre-approved, already been through underwriting. The other is the house inspection, and a lot of my sellers are ordering a pre-inspection because they don't want any surprises. Even in an imbalanced market, a seller's market, we're still seeing concessions on health and safety. And specifically, I just had a closing where there was a leak in the oil tank. That had to be corrected by the seller. If there's an underground oil tank, that's going to have to be corrected,
My mom had to
remediated
do that one
by the
herself.
seller.
Yes. Yeah.
Any
Radon. There's a lot of radon in
Radon
Westchester.
is going to have to be corrected, and that's a big one. So it's HVAC issues. If the units are the old Freon, not Puron, end of the useful life. So HVAC is a major concession. Roof, health and safety, mold, radon, and what was the other one I just mentioned? Anyway, those health
lead
and safety
paint
issues
is a huge issue.
Well, that's
but
a huge issue all over,
Most,
Yeah.
I'm not seeing concessions for it yet. And sellers get weirded out when young clients with a young child who's still like popping things in their mouth, we want to do a lead test.
Can I make
It's off-putting.
a public service announcement?
Sure.
After the lawsuits, a lot of buyers thought, oh, all I need to do now is call up the listing agent, and that'll be an advantage. We just talked about concessions. Number one, I believe that your agent is going to wring concessions out for you in a tough market. If you get a good buyer's agent, they're going to basically continue to argue for health and safety and other concessions. They're going to give confidence in a multiple bid situation that your bid is reliable and that you're going to close on the property. So there's still a reason to have buyer agency in 2025.
Thank you for that. I agree. But one of the things I think about when I'm talking about concessions from a seller to a buyer, are sellers offering to pay closing costs?
Oh, I could talk about that in New York. Let me tell you. Oh my goodness,
Please
especially
do.
for first-time buyers. I'm working with several of them, but financing is a huge deal, right?
Yeah.
And the debt-to-income ratio comes into play. But co-ops, as you know, having their financial requirements, that also affects things. So when there is an assessment going on, oh my goodness, I always have a try to negotiate. The seller pays off that entire assessment. That's going to affect their carrying cost, their
Absolutely.
debt-to-income
I'm going
ratio.
through that now as well.
Yeah, oh yeah, and so that and other miscellaneous closing costs like flip tax, and so all of a sudden you have the assessments being paid off, the flip tax being paid off. That could really add up very quickly, and then mansion tax starts at $1 million. It's hard to avoid that one in New York City. Everything's
It used to be that was
so-
luxury. I don't have to spend $1 million because I don't want to pay the mansion
Yeah.
tax. Now everything is $1 million or more, so it doesn't apply. You're right. Well said. I mean, absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Look, yes. You want to say something? No.
Oh, you're smiling big over there.
He's
You have
smiling
something
big
to
over
say.
there. It's like, I want to ask you though. Before
Mansion tax, Connecticut, $2.5 million, 2.5 and up.
Well, but we have a graduating scale now the past several years. But I want to ask you before we go to break about final offer. I read something about final offer last week or the week before, and I thought, is that a private network, sort of what's been going on lately out there in the world, or what is final offer? And I think it was just at Sotheby's, not at all agents. Is that correct?
So Final Offer can be found at finaloffer.com, and it's a company with a software that's offering an auction-like experience, and it's particularly relevant in the 2025 market in Westchester, perhaps, and Connecticut. So they've partnered with some companies like Sotheby's have implemented it company-wide. Other individual agents like myself are trying it, testing it, buying an individual account with Final Offer. It works when you know that you have a hot commodity and you're going to probably get multiple bids interested. I recently had a Greenwich condominium at the $700,000 mark. I knew that was a commodity. It was in a building with
That sounds
25
cheap
other
for Greenwich.
condos. We knew that we were fairly priced, and we knew that we would get a great deal of interest over a weekend. So we put it out there, and it was an experiment. What happens when you put out there that we're accepting offers this weekend? We're going to close down the process on Sunday night. We have an asking price, an aspirational price of maybe $750. We have a bid in at $700. I know that there are two other offers in, and I can see as a buyer that there's 500 people following, and this is a true statement. I think it was something like 575 followed that condo over the course of the weekend. We had multiple bids, and in this case, the condo, the winning bid was $730, and the seller was pleased because they knew that it had fetched
Right
its
in the middle.
market price. Right. And the buyers, more importantly, felt that they weren't being played by the listing agent. Listing agents are like hostage negotiators and arms dealers, right?
Yeah.
We like to keep all the information
These
to
days.
ourselves. You only need to know what I need to tell, what I want to tell you. And
Finally
buyers
admitted
are
on
very
the show.
suspicious.
Hostage agent. There we go.
Buyers are very suspicious
Less is
of that.
more.
They're like,
Less is more.
you know what? If I have
Yes,
multiple
exactly.
offers, the first question I get from the buying agent is like, well, is the winning offer in your office? You know, is this your customer? Did you submit my offer? A lot of suspicion in our and that's what Final Offer is attempting to add more transparency in some situations so we can eliminate that.
Well said, Mr. John. With that note, it's time for another break, but we aren't going anywhere. We will be coming right back.
This podcast is supported by the More Network, powered by Brown Harris Stevens. Real estate touches every aspect of our lives, from design and architecture to investing and the economy. Now there's a way to get all your real estate information in one place. The More Network. With more than 20 podcast and webcast series, the Mastery of Real Estate Network is powered by Brown Harris Stevens, one of the country's most distinguished brokerages. Discover advice from notable entrepreneurs, compelling topics, and access to top global real estate experts. Subscribe to their YouTube and Apple podcast channels by visiting getmorenetwork.com.
Okay, everybody, we are back. So let me ask Michael, in your territory, single-family homes or condos? I know you don't deal with a lot of co-ops down there. What is selling more? Where is more interest from people? Do I want to buy a condo? Do I want to buy a house? What's leading the charge these days?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned earlier, the single family is much more demand in Sarasota. It's more going to be someone's primary residence than a condominium would. And that said, there's more factors affecting the condominium market than there are single family. Unless, of course, even if you are one of the barrier islands that got really, what a scary time with the hurricane season last year. But still, you're seeing some people sell out or from moving on from those areas. But people are still bullish. Sarasota was like 100 years since the last storm. So people are, very much still pushing forward and they want to live on the water. But the condominium market, though, versus the single family aspect, they have different things going on. The costs have gone up so much just to be able to maintain these buildings. And also they're having assessments for the first time. We're so used to it in New York City, but in Florida, you're not. It's all of a sudden, wow, we have to have an assessment here because we have new codes we need to comply with for flooding, for wind. Everything is just, after these hurricanes and what happened, it's really increased costs. Insurance has gone up a lot. But there's been also a ton of inventory built, and I think that supply has died down a bit. So single family is definitely outpacing demand from condominium market.
Mark, when I grew up in Westchester, not that long ago, there was no talk about condo. There was no condo. What the hell is a condominium? Everybody wanted house. What's the split?
I mean, the condos in Westchester are still...
Now they're all over the place.
There's not... So... There are some successful ones being built right now in Sleepy Hollow, which are right by
I love Sleepy Hollow.
The bridge, and they're 76% sold.
Walk to the train.
There's not windows on the building yet. They're 76% sold.
Wow.
It's a 1-6, 2-bed, 2-bath condo, third floor, kind of faces a building across the street.
Wow, for Sleepy Hollow. That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Who's buying those? Young families with kids?
Yeah, thank you. Good question.
That's a demographics question, and that's illegal. No.
Now on this air, you can talk about
the buyer that I took was a downsizer that sold a huge house in Scarsdale, and wanted kind of to be in the zone, but
probably
still
$4 or $5 million in Scarsdale.
But I do think that you're getting some young people who are renting, paying a fortune, and paying. There's renters who are paying $20,000 for a 2-bedroom apartment in Manhattan. They're like, I could own something, Manhattan, and I should own something, but I'm not.
Right.
So you do get people who are moving out of the city. Usually the precipice, as you probably know too, is 2 kids, but sometimes it's people who have just had a kid. 2 kids and a dog is like, time to go.
2 kids and a dog.
Yeah.
Gotta move. All right, so in your territory, mister, condo, single house, you mentioned in Greenwich, $700-something thousand for a condo, which I think is cheap for Greenwich, but again, I don't know the particulars. What seems to be more in demand? Buying a condo when you're moving into that neighborhood or buying a single-family home?
There's 6,000 single-family homes. There's 1,000 condos in a town like New Canaan. Darien has even fewer condos. Westport probably about the same mix. The last 3 luxury condos, and I define that as maybe $1,100 per foot and over $2 million. The last 3 luxury condos I sold in New Canaan, the first was a townhouse at the $2.5 million level to a CEO coming in from Westchester with a wife, no kids, in the downtown. The second one was somebody trading out of a $5 million house in New Canaan into a $2.5 million luxury condo. That was a New Canaan family where the kids were getting older. The third was a grandmother from Brooklyn selling a townhouse in Brooklyn and choosing New Canaan, not for the schools, not for the commute, but to be close to her adult son who works in the local hospital, runs the local hospital. So you have a very not predictable. A very great range of buyers. You have the trade up moves, the crosstown moves. You have the moves in from Brooklyn. Funny thing about Brooklyn, people love New Canaan. I don't know what it is. Maybe Brooklyn
beautiful.
people love
It's a beautiful
New Canaan.
place. Well, you're selling in Brooklyn a townhouse. You're making some money. I mean, you're making bank a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Sell high, buy low. In New Canaan. This is low
There's
in
the
New
Connecticut
Canaan.
logo. Sell high
2.9.
in New York City. Buy low in Connecticut.
That sector of the market is getting bidding wars as well.
Correct.
It's slowing down, but they are still happening.
No, but you're absolutely correct. So let's talk about, you kind of alluded to, let's talk about, reasons why people are migrating out of New York City and to Florida and to Westchester and to Connecticut. When you're dealing with somebody who wants to move to Florida, what's the deal? Why are they doing that? Is it retirement? Is it they're done with the cost of everything being so expensive in New York, or they just want better weather? What is the drive?
It's a combination of things. I would say what's not it's becoming less common is that second, third home. I think that people are actually
Right.
relocating to live there is still more. You're still seeing that demand be more stronger than the second and third homes. But that said, it could be everything from, big one, actually surprising stat was impressed me. In Sarasota, LinkedIn did a study of which city in the entire country, in the United States, are people switching locations for a job, like a change in job. Sarasota was number one. So there's been a lot of job growth.
Sarasota's beautiful, though.
It's stunning.
Beautiful.
Always Siesta Keys, one of the top rated
It's one of my
beaches in the
favorite
country.
places in Florida, actually.
But that's a stat, though, that surprised the heck out of me. I was like, oh my gosh, is there really that much job growth there? And so there's more than just for the beach that they're coming down there, or more room and all those things. And they got a couple dogs and a couple kids. It's also for work. So there's a
So it's a
nice
combination
mix.
of reasons where before it was basically just summer home, better weather, vacation place.
Baby
Mark, what
boomers
about in
retiring.
Westchester? What's the migration out of the city thinking when they come up to Westchester? I mean, my family's been bugging me for at least 2 years now. Aren't you getting tired of living in New York City now? Come back to Westchester. I'm like, well, I don't know, maybe, but I don't know.
I personally, I lived in the city for 20 years, and I was just ready for a yard, and the timing worked for me for
Maybe
my.
I am too. I don't know. See, this is what I'm thinking.
You can have a yard here, but it's it's an.
Well, not here. Well, you can. Yes, you can. But what's the impetus? When people are coming up to your territory and saying, "Hey, I've been in New York."
I think it's more
What else?
space. I think it's a lesser purchase price
So it's not just retirement; it's more space, maybe kids, school,
and education.
and education. Yeah.
Yeah.
The schools in Westchester may be better than in Manhattan or all of New York City.
I think you can get a good education anywhere, but every child has different learning needs, and I think that some parents just associate the suburbs with a better education
Why do I want to come? Why do
or
I want
exposed to less, New York City things.
New York City things? We'll leave it at that. Why do I want to come live by you in Connecticut?
They come for the schools and then they stay for the lifestyle. I have to say that I'm even a product of that. I moved out of Stuyvesant Town before it was cool on 14th Street and Avenue B in Manhattan when I was turning 12. And I moved out to New Canaan for the middle school and the New Canaan high school experience. I had 4 kids, and I have to tell you, I don't think I could afford to send them to private school in Manhattan.
I don't know how anybody can.
Right? When I can own, I have a 200-year-old antique with 4 acres, a river, a little
place is
waterfall, a 6-car garage. 6 cars, Vince.
I've seen
6-car
pictures,
garage.
dude.
Well,
I know.
I mean, so you get all that for what? $2 million. You're paying $30,000 in tax. And you rent the school system for 10 years, and then your kids leave, and you say, you know what? This is nice.
That's a good one. You rent the school system.
You rent the school system for
You
10
do,
years, and
yeah.
then some people say, I'm decamping for Florida, and that's okay. But it sounds like Florida's kind of crowded these days, don't get quite the value
property
we get
values are
10
down.
years ago. So some people are electing not to go to Florida, and they're staying in New Canaan, and they're like, this is pretty great. We've got theater, we've got the arts, we're only an hour from Manhattan. I've got beaches. I'm only 2 hours from the ski slopes. I have everything I need right
Hey,
here.
listen, one of my brothers lives in Brookfield, as you know, and his son, who got that great interest rate, also just bought something in Brookfield. But my brother married my sister-in-law, not his wife, my sister-in-law, who I love dearly, 35 years ago, and moved to Connecticut. And I said, what are you doing that for? Why are you going to Connecticut? Well, she's from there. I said, but it's Connecticut. I have to tell you something. He is such a Connecticut person. I have become one too. I mean, where he lives is just beautiful. And, for, what he has house-wise and property-wise, I mean, you could never duplicate that, in Manhattan or anywhere in New York City. It's amazing. And he's there. He's in that house probably 25 out of the 35 years that they're married. I mean, it's gorgeous. It's absolutely stunning. And you're right. The lifestyle is incredible. But I also think it's incredible in Westchester as well. So, people are migrating to Westchester, migrating to Florida, migrating to Connecticut. It's all beautiful. It all comes with challenges, just like living in New York City does. But it's different. And from where I come from, I've always said there's nothing wrong with being different. When you need to be, want to be, have to be, well, hey, it is what it is. People move into this town in New York City for a whole bunch of reasons. They need to be here, want to be here, job transfer, sometimes schools, it depends. But, people come and people go. There is no good place or bad place by comparison to every place that we...
You can be happy anywhere.
You can be happy anywhere. Yeah. And as I always say on this program, as long as you're memorable, it doesn't matter. You can be happy and memorable anywhere. Let's quickly talk about, because I like to bring it up, every once in a while, about the NAR Commission settlement affecting all of us from, I think, January 13th of this year, where we now have to negotiate with sellers, and here in New York City, we're not even represented by the National Association of Realtors. That's what makes it so bizarre. But we have to now negotiate with sellers in whether they want to pay a buyer commission or not. Michael, how is that working for you here in New York?
It's honestly just formalities have changed. It's the same. Sellers are still paying it every single time.
Right. That's my experience.
It's just the formalities have changed. That's it. Just because no buyer wants to shell out that much cash. But if it's an all-cash transaction, then fine, But if a lot of people financing, it's a world of a difference. It affects how much cash they have to bring at closing. Now, what it does affect, though, you have to make sure that you're asking that, hey, what is the buying commission being paid? Because in the rare case that they're not, you're going to make sure you have to negotiate that part of the offer. Also, if you do have an agreement signed with your buyer, they're going to want to know as well. Like, hey, you need to confirm those things because it does factor into negotiations.
But let me ask you about the agreements being signed by buyers, okay? Because that's really, I agree with everything you just said, and it's kind of, in my world anyway, been pretty much status quo. They're paying the commission, sellers that is, and it seems to be okay. But when you approach a buyer to sign an agreement now, which is mandatory in my company anyway, and all over, and they say, I'm not paying a commission, or I don't want to pay a commission, and oh, by the way, I'm a first-time buyer. I don't have that extra money to pay a commission, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. I don't have that. I've said on this program several times already, we've got to learn to be better negotiators. We've got to learn to be better communicators. But when you're up against that, Michael, what really is the argument? How do you get past that?
I say you won't have to. The seller will pay it. I'll give him an example. I had a client that was trying to save. His goal is to save 3%. I got him a 13% discount. This was a crazy deal. This is not happening every day. Most of the discounts are 5%, give or take, in the city.
Michael, can you get me a 13% discount?
Oh, listen, let's go.
I'm going to ask him that later.
Guess what it was? Shocker. It was a dated co-op. It was a dated co-op that's been sitting on the market
dumpy
for a
co-op.
while.
That needs everything.
Yeah. So 10% that he was willing to pay 10% more. I mean, how much money have saved? Every time I see that guy, he's like, oh my, he's
but my friend forever.
Yeah. So it that's the thing. I think it's that conversation, but it's more than just negotiating that buyer agents offer. There's so much to it between the process and dealing with the co-op boards. It's also off-market inventory insight. There's so many different things because buyers just don't want to overpay, and they want to make sure that they're finding a place that they're going to love living. So
correct. Now, in Westchester, I know you work here in New York as well. What is the buyer-seller situation with regard to the NAR commission settlement like in Westchester these days? Are sellers paying commissions for
Personally,
both?
I don't feel that the lawsuit is really helping buyers at all. I think it gives them a little bit more confusion, and that's actually beneficial for buyer brokers because wherever you can add value, it helps. I just did an off-market sale where the seller was refusing to pay commission. We negotiated the price fully and then increased the purchase price by $40,000 to be able to be paid commission. And
that's what people.
So just stay diligent, and you really have to check the comps to make sure that will appraise if you do it that way. But that was the only story. Otherwise, commission is basically still the same. It might slowly. Everyone's chipping away at it. Zillow's chipping away at our commission. Street Easy's chipping away at our commission. These third-party companies are all. Everyone wants a piece of the pie, and that's just where it's at. If you want referrals, that's where it's coming from. Yeah.
What about in Connecticut, John?
Same. Not much has happened, practically speaking. If I see a buyer, I say most likely the commission will be paid by the seller, but you'll know it before you make your offer. So if you want to make an offer on that $2 million house, we're going to ask the question, are you offering a 2.5% or 2%, or what is it? 90% of the time, it's a 2.5% concession. But if they're not, we'll know that buyer and we'll incorporate that into our offer. We'll offer 2.5% less if you're expected to pay the commission. Once they understand that the net is equal, then they're comfortable signing.
Now, you guys, when you're working outside of New York City, are using the MLS system, multiple listing system. We here in Manhattan, New York City, do not use that. So when you're looking at the MLS, which, the new rules say you can't put commission amounts in the MLS system. So you see a property where, the agent was not successful in getting the seller to pay both sides of the deal. What do? Do you walk away from that, or do you call the agent and say, is there a possibility that the seller will pay or not?
No, it makes no difference to us. We say, is the seller paying? The seller is not paying, that's fine. Instead of making a $2 million offer, we're going to factor that in, and we're going to make a 1950 offer.
I get that, but is the seller going to accept that, given the fact that they're going to have to now have the buyer pay you a commission?
Well, mathematically, all of the buyers are in the same boat, and all of the buyers are doing the same math.
I know, but plain devil's advocate here, and I hate that word, but anyway, plain devil's advocate here. I'm a buyer and says, even though we get a better price or a reduced price, I don't have the cash to do that. So you might save me $50,000 in the asking price, but I don't have the cash to do that.
In practice, I'm going to say 19 out of 20, 95% of the recent transactions, you're going to see all paying 2.5%. Not much has changed.
Right. Here in Manhattan, I agree with Mike.
From the seller.
No, exactly. Seller has, I've only lost one, and they're still kind of thinking about my conversation with them. But all the other listings I put up so far since January, they're all paying full 3 and 3. So I haven't seen any change in that, but I don't know where that's going to lead.
I will say I have one unicorn that sticks out, because there's a very, very, very stubborn seller that I'm dealing with, and he wants the buying agent to submit it and negotiate it, but he still says he's going to pay it.
Right.
But it's just that he just doesn't have it displayed there that this price includes 2.5% commission. But I always tell every agent, even if they don't ask, I make sure I look out for my brokers too, and I also don't want any problems. And so I say, hey, he prefers, make sure in your offer to include your buyer commission. So.
Have you all felt like you've become better negotiators or communicators since that has come into effect in January? Not to mention what's going to happen June 11th with the rental war commission that we're facing, and we still don't have direction on where REBNY is going with that. So are we better at negotiating and communicating, or are we just kind of getting grayer hair by the minute?
I think it's important to remember
there's a lot of gray hair here.
That the whole purpose of that lawsuit was to remind everyone that commission is negotiable.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well.
And so, you could always say, I want 4% commission on this.
And a lot of training has taken place at all of our agencies to remind people how to communicate with customers, how to talk about the lawsuit, how to talk about the changes in the industry. So if there's a silver lining from adding confusion and making the industry less transparent, and I'm hard-pressed to find a benefit, but maybe the benefit is that we're all getting a great deal of training on how to communicate this to our customers.
And as I always say in this industry, there are an awful lot of banana heads that run around calling themselves agents. So I say good luck to everybody. And we are coming right back with my thoughts for the week. Gentlemen, great conversation. Thank you for coming. We're coming right back.
Hi, it's Stephen Bailey from Roadway Moving and Storage. Listening to Vince Rocco, you know the right partner makes all the difference. At Roadway, we deliver an experience your clients will love. For specialized services and white glove care, choose Roadway. Want to learn more? Email me at steven@roadwaymoving.com or visit roadwaymoving.com.
Okay, everybody, we are back with my thoughts for this week. Many buyers are choosing markets outside of New York City due to affordability, lifestyle preferences, and financial incentives. High cost of living, rising mortgage rates, and New York City's complex co-op approval process, which we talked about, can make purchasing in this city more challenging. In contrast, markets like Florida offer lower taxes, warmer weather, and a more business-friendly environment, attracting retirees and remote workers. Connecticut and Westchester appeal to those seeking suburban space, good schools, but proximity to New York City without the same level of congestion or cost. Additionally, some buyers are looking for investment opportunities in areas with lower property taxes and higher rental yields compared to New York City. And that's our broadcast for today. Thanks to my guests for being here on set with me. You can follow me on Facebook, on Threads, Instagram, LinkedIn, Blue Sky, or TikTok at Vince Rocco. And Amanda Knox says, look around the world and see where the broken pieces are, and then see what or where your broken pieces fit. And from all of us here at Talking New York Real Estate and the More Network, to all of you all around the world, thanks for spending a part of your day with us. I'm very grateful, and I will see you next time. Goodbye, everybody.